Welcome back to the open debate. We're here to another conversation, an interview with Adrien the realist. We're gonna wait for a few people to hop in, and he will be here in a moment. We're gonna have a good conversation here tonight. All things politics, pop culture, a lot of different things will be happening. We'll be discussing a lot of topics, everything from the convoy to TikTok, Christianity, Aboriginal discussions, things along this nature. So we're going to be having a talk here this evening, and we're just getting going right now. We're just getting started. It is just starting as we speak, so anybody that's interested in the conversation, make sure you tap the screen and share the stream. I'm going to bring Adrien in, and we're going to get going. Thanks for joining. How's it going there, Adrien? I appreciate you coming out to the open debate.
Well, thank you. It's going quite well. I had a little bit of a busy day today, but you know what? I really appreciate your show. Thank you for asking me to come on to your platform.
Thank you for being here. We're just getting started. It's you're the third individual to come out to the interview style that we have going on, and I appreciate you being here to speak your voice and tell us what's going on inside your mind. Like I've said in the past, I'm trying to create a different sort of platform where individuals aren't speaking over each other, and we're able to get out our voices a little bit more fluently. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing your opinion and your thoughts, and on a longer format type situation. I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you. You know, we've been asked this about, talking to some truckers and talking to a lot of people. Like I didn't think I was going to be on here talking about such, things, but I got asked, calls from all over the place, especially some of the clans mothers and some of the truckers. And I went down and met a nice woman up in Cold Lake, and it was her 84th birthday. And, having to speak with them, starting to be, there's starting to be something in the air, especially with the trucker movement and, up in Winnipeg. And something kind of hit me. So I just had to keep on speaking. Like I said, I didn't want to be a part of this. You kind of stumble onto it, if that makes sense. So.
Yep. So before we get too far into discussing things, the first question that I usually ask people, it gets the description of where you're at and where you're from, what your ideas are. So it is, how would you describe your content and what you do here on TikTok?
Well, my content, how would I describe it? Well, I'll tell you where I'm from first. I'm from what do you call Chittick Lake, Saskatchewan. It's called Pelican Lake First Nations. What do you call? Obviously, you guys know who I am, Adrien Thomas, and what kind of bring me on this path. The thing that bring me on this path to begin with was like, I think it's more personal than anything. Like I never wanted to be a part of politics. That's one of the biggest things. My grandfather, when I was young, he used to talk to us about the treaties and every single thing about, the idea of who we are as First Nations when I was a kid. And, when I left the reservation going to a white school, I had this idea that everybody knew what the treaties were, but I was so far gone that, everybody, like I thought for sure everybody knew this because you're coming from the reservation to the white populace, and it was totally different. What brought me on this journey was like, about 5, maybe 6 years ago, I made a dress because I'm a clothing designer. I went through clothing the whole nine bits, went for some part of political studies, political sciences and economics and a little bit of sociology. And, so I did clothing, and one guy I greatly respect, his name is Chris Yellowbird, right? He said he needed a dress, and I had an extra dress. I gave it to him, and he asked me, a little bit about, what I thought. Told him I had a dream. It was more of a vision. And for Native Americans who go through dreams and visions, you kind of have to share it, especially when they ask about it. So I told him in my dream, and this is kind of weird, but in my dream, I was walking around Edmonton, and in my dream, I had this guy right beside me. His name is Leon Keenach. And in my dream, we were walking, and I had this flag with me. And as I'm walking on the, going counterclockwise around the city, all these vehicles are honking, and some of them were really angry with me. And what I was holding was a swastika, because the swastika was always our Native American symbol prior to, getting it taken away. Um, so I got down to as I'm walking, there's this overpass. As I'm walking through it, and I see all these Native Americans standing on top of this overpass. As soon as I get there, I told Leon, don't say nothing. So they came greet me, and what came out of my mouth was fire. And I didn't get that dream. It just burned everybody. And my elders at the time, when I told them this, because I had a 5 day ceremony, had a shaking tent, I had a sweat, I had the flag ceremony, the pipe, and I got my Cree name. So, talking to them about this dream, what they told me is, in your dream, you're going to be fighting your people, and it's going to be about, you're going to destroy every single narrative they have. It means that I'm going to go against them. I'm going to talk to them about truths. I'm going to antagonize them. I'm going to get them really angry. You know, and I was wondering why. And we were talking about it and talking about chief and council's corruption. Indian Act. Residential schools and all these things. And I thought, I'm never going to fight my own people because I just didn't care for it. I didn't like politics. I talked politics, but I didn't care about it. But what happened was, about a year and a half later, I'm doing photography up in British Columbia there at the waterfalls, and I happened to come across a post with murdered and missing Indigenous woman, and I told them it's far more deeper than people think. It's just not people dying. It was about the underlying issues of sexual abuse, the underlying issues of drugs and alcohol and gang systems, where we actually ourselves, like I've seen so many times, like Red Alert, Native Syndicate, all these people would actually traffic our own teenage girls. Sexual abuse, most of the sexual abuse people that actually go through a lot, they go through, you know, like I've always said, the day you should have put a red dress on a girl is the day that, they got sexually abused, because that is the most, that is the most heinous crime you could ever do to a little girl. And my people fought me about that, and they were pissed off. For me, I felt like they wanted to blame the white populace and the government only, but we are also. They gave us the tools to destroy ourselves. You know, and that was just the underlying issue. I wanted to bring that out there. I didn't want to hurt anybody, but I also believe in statistics with with the government at the time, when it came down to Stephen Harper, when he said 64 to 68% of all these deaths that actually happened at the hand of our own people. And I'm not trying to throw it in anybody's face, but I just want to say that, we have to look deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and most uncomfortable discussions before we actually find something that, actually is, maybe it's us, maybe there's something that we're not seeing. And so, and honestly, that didn't go well with my Native American people. So what they finally did was, after arguing for about a couple of weeks, they put a post on Facebook saying that, it was a fake post saying that I was a child trafficker and that I was trafficking my own people, and went like wildfire across Canada, United States. Black Lives Matter, you name it, creep catchers, callers, all came against me, phone calls from all over the world. And that almost destroyed my business. Well, I could say clearly destroyed my business. They just wanted to destroy my business because I was talking about something that nobody has ever talked about, and going against the grain. Sometimes you have to go against the grain to actually find people. And then I look back at what my elders said, I'll be fighting my own people. And that's exactly what happened. But recently, before my elder passed away here, she told me that now you could turn it around. You made your point. You had to be the opposition for your own native people, so that way you can work with the Canada and its white populace and everybody else down the line, so that way you can be that image. Now you have to turn it around and let those native people hear you, because they're clearly hearing you with their anger. Sometimes the best thing, she said, is people will remember. They will not remember you for 1,000 things you do nice. It's that one time that you say something bad that they'll always remember you for. And now I'm turning it around so that way they can listen to what we have to say, especially these kind of discussions. I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it does make a lot of sense, and I appreciate that. You're very well spoken. So essentially, a dream which has resonated in your own life into fruition from what you've seen in certain aspects is what brought you to be speaking here on the platform.
you see, my mother was a prostitute when I was a kid. 8 years old, I used to see the first time I see her, when she left the house because we had no power to do these things. So I saw cocaine, I saw heroin, and I saw everything. And because of that, I told myself at a young age I will never ever do drugs. Saw my father, who was also, and he was a alcoholic. So I got a lot of scars all over my face because we had to fight all the time, every weekend, if that was the case. Seeing, working as a spiritual elder, especially like, for working with children at one time, I got hard and fired on the same day for speaking truth, regardless of anything. And, the thing that bring me here, to this platform is the fact that, I realized after my daughter passed away is that there's something deeper than just us trying to fight our own little indoor battles or, just our family life battles. It's legislation. It's not only legislation, it's the broken soul of people in this man-made concept that we call society. And when I look at the aspect of deep down natural law, I think most of us have lost our sense of spirituality, and not spirituality as people think. Like when we talk about soul, Greek terminology of soul is the mind. I'm talking about that road with the energy we have in the time scale that that fulfills our souls to understanding what natural law is. And natural law is about communication, understanding each other, love, and all these things, and understanding our environment within everything. But most people have lost their way, and they're all talking about the man-made concept of money first and foremost, without consequence to environment. Like we talk about environmental issues, but it all become it got intertwined with taxes. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the real connection of who we are as spiritual people. And that's the thing that we forgot. We don't even talk to our neighbors anymore. And our egos got so inflated that even if we're going down the same road, with truth and unity, people's egos tend to go somewhere else. And that's why we have arguments with, like, give an example, like Calgary Mayor or Sheep King. And it's all about who's right. It's not even about what's really right inside of us, but it's just the fact that we're trying to be egotistical, if that makes sense,
Mhm. No, it makes a lot of sense. It definitely does. One thing that I do need to urge, we're going to be probably talking about a lot of very sensitive topics this evening, so we got to try to use words to mask what we're discussing so that it's not so easily flagged by the algorithm.
Sounds good.
I'd like it to be seen by lots of individuals, not only on this platform, but any other social media platform, really doesn't like to talk about sensitive issues like we are discussing here. So we just got to kind of work around certain words, but don't be afraid to talk about any sort of topic for sure, 100%.
Sounds good.
Um, appreciate the gifts there, guys. You don't have to do that, but always appreciate it. Um, Something that I want to bring up to you that isn't in relevance to what we're discussing right now is a theory that I saw you put forward onto the atmosphere of the internet. And I've also seen other individuals parrot as well. And I've seen them take a lot of flack for it, but I have not seen your response or an in depth description of how you feel. So I'm going to ask you. I saw that you were putting forward um, a theory around how Native Canadians, Native Americans should reclaim the word Indian. And then I saw a white man say the exact same things that I saw you claiming, and he was viciously attacked. So I'd love to hear an explanation from you just around what you meant, an in-depth version around a description of what's going on, and just what was going on. What are you thinking? What are you saying? And what's your theory around that?
Okay, before I get into that, let's talk about identity politics and what's getting thrown everywhere. Identity politics destroys the narrative of actually being real. Whether you're a man, woman, now it's birthing people. You have to question why. And you have to question the ideology of indigenous versus First Nations versus, Inuit versus, Native American Indian. Definitions have power, especially in this man-made world. What I mean by man-made world, I'm talking about the man-made law. English is so bastardized from Latin, from Greek terminologies, that most words actually have a definition if you were to look at it. And what I know about contractual law, especially being a business owner, I gotta be careful what I state in my contract. I lost a couple of cases prior to just by saying things without understanding. See, my grandfather, when he went to, he got a medallion from the Queen, 1976, and he fought hard with his chief and counsel at the time to gain land that they have taken prior to World War II. He got that land back, and the government at the time was trying to give him money. Instead of giving you the land, we'll give you money and then you'll buy the land, which does not make sense. Just give us the land, he said. And he realized by taking money to buy the land, there's an agreement behind that contract, which means that there's something to be said of you'll have to use this money for this, but on top of this, and there's always these clauses. And he said, nope, we're just going to take the land. So they beat the law and they taken the land, and then some of that land they converted it into Ducks Unlimited Canada because there's some international laws in relation to that. You know what I mean? Or gives us more of a guard to take it for the animals. But what he's always told me was this: do not lose your Native American name. You're Native American. You're Native American Indian. And I used to say, why? Because at that time we were considered Native American Indians. He says, they're going to try to call you anything else other than that name. Don't fall for it. Because what happens is when you look at the treaty prior to Canada, there was a treaty between the Pilgrims and Canada. There's a 40-60 split before the formation of this governmental system. So what people don't understand is that everybody in Canada and the Native Americans, they're all treaty. All the white people are treaty, and we are treaty. That's how it is stated. You are treaty as well too. If you're Canadian, you're treaty for that. They say there's four types of governments. There's federal, provincial, municipalities, and Native Americans, like for their sovereignty. And the problem is what people don't understand is when you start, because the Indian Act was put in place and to take away the Indian from the Indian. That's what the Indian Act was, also to to cultivate their lands and everything. And why I state these things, because it's very important before we get down to the contract. That they needed to make certain that we were institutionalized, break every single thing, try to take us away from our education system of who we are. They had to try to manipulate us into our identity. Because we, like, since 1990, if I spoke Cree, I got strapped in my hand. I was always supposed to pledge allegiance at 8:45 every morning to the Queen before school started. So all these things that they try to do with their tactics to try to knock us down, try to force this education into us. My grandfather always stated, do not lose your education when it comes down to this treaty. And when they start calling you anything other than Native American Indian, that they have stated on that treaty, it's a contract. If you say you're Aboriginal, Aboriginal means what? It can be any country, like give an example, Australia. They're Aboriginals over there to that land. But there's definitions that we have to look at. That's one. And at the same time, Indigenous. Anybody, when you really look at they're trying to change Webster's dictionary and all these terminologies. Indigenous, if you are born on the land, such as yourself, you are indigenous to the place that you were born. You know what I mean? That's what it's supposed to be prior to, but now they're trying to change definitions. Now, at the same time, Inuit are not they're not Native American Indian. They're Inuit. They're two distinct cultures. But a lot of Inuit think that they're Native American, which is totally false. They have more rights than we do. And the only bearing that I have to my treaty is to my reservation. And if I lose my reservation, I lose my status. That's what people don't get. So the point is, we have to fight for our Native American Indian name. And it's all about contracts because these people will take it away. And that's what they're trying to do, especially with UNDRIP and every single thing like that. We never made treaties with the United Nations. We made treaties with the Crown, and that's the thing that people don't get. So I don't know if that helps you understand, but our name is very, very important in a contract, especially a treaty. So definitions,
No,
right?
I think that it does answer a lot of the questions that some people had around why you felt that way, and it does make a lot of sense in a contractual nature in those parameters. I just think that a lot of people had a visceral reaction when they heard that type of language being used because a lot of people feel as though the certain language that they are using in this current day and age is the only acceptable language and is the most progressive state, which doesn't always, if you're going to be actually progressing, then you have to take a step back and realize that some things that you may be exhibiting at this point in time may not be the most correct. And so we got to realize, I don't know, where we're at and what we're doing and where we're going. Anything else about that whole idea?
Well, cancel culture is the biggest, destruction that we have right now, and it seems like it's spilling off into my Native American community. You can't say too much without offending people. And I've always said it's facts before feelings. We can't have feelings
Did
before
you
facts.
freeze there,
Pardon me?
Adrian?
I think you froze. I'm still
Can
moving
anybody
around.
hear Adrian in the
Did,
chat? Yep. Okay.
can you guys hear me?
All right. We both
Okay.
must have froze for each other. You're back now for me.
Yes. So, feelings before facts is what they're trying to put right now, but it has to be facts before feelings, especially when people ask me a lot of times, what do you think about the blood quantum in Native Americans? Because it seems like we're the only ones that have blood quantum with our treaties, especially who we are as Native Americans, right? And I've said, I get it is like a catch-22. People will talk about, well, that's racist. That's not right. This is this and this and this. But I don't know if you guys recall when Donald Trump was fighting that Cherokee Nation when they're trying to put a casino on that land, right? I don't know if you remember that. And when he went to, what do you call, I don't know, Supreme Court, and he said, these guys are whiter than me. Why are they called Cherokee? And he was talking about these things, and people thought it was racist. But he was technically correct. That nation formed by people that were pretendians, that I'll have to say pretendians. And if we let anybody just say they're Native American and just claim they're Native American just because of the taxation part, it dilutes most of our Native Americans for who we really are. And that also that will destroy our image when it comes down to even our treaty. You know what I mean? So that's why he said, and that's why, I looked at the whole thing. I thought at that time, Donald Trump was being pretty racist until I read the whole thing. And he says, no, I'm just trying to say that first and foremost, don't use taxation, loopholes and claim you're Native American when you're truly not. You're actually just like, you're pretending that you're something that you're not. And that it's like if you're pretending to be a cop or a veteran, that can be very, very, that's not honorable at all. And that's what we're talking about is cancel culture, and we can't fall victim to anything else. But blood quantum is very important for who we are. If we don't have blood quantum to
Can you
figure out who
explain
we
that a
are,
little bit more for people who don't? Can you explain that a little bit more for people who don't understand what you mean when you're saying blood quantum?
what? For Native Americans such as myself, I have fairly pure blood. But if I marry a white lady, it'll be half blood. And then if my child marries a white person after that, the children are not considered Native American. And it has everything to do with the treaty, because you still have a voice to talk about international policy or policy when you're talking about, what do you call the Commonwealth. And that's why they're trying to dilute us. And that's why blood quantum is very important. And I know it sounds racial because it just seems like, oh, a black person can't marry a white person because, that, and then you lose your culture and everything. But the same goes for a contract when you're talking about Canada and United States versus whomever, because that treaty is based on blood quantum. It's based on the First Nations that were here, or the Native Americans that were here first. And that's what it's about. So I don't know if
Well,
that
if I can
makes
say
sense.
anything, then I guess the entire situation, regardless of individuals agree with the way that you're presenting the argument or not, the baseline around what you're trying to achieve is a preservement, or like you're trying to preserve your
Yep.
cultural heritage in a way that you feel is going to preserve it. Um, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I think that it's just the way that you express yourself. Some people have a reaction towards because they don't like that word. They don't like the way that it's being presented. And they also don't see where you're coming from because they don't have those same experiences. So I'm glad that you were able to express yourself a little bit more and let us know how you feel. There is something in relation to this that I'd like to ask you that you can expand on a little bit more, because some people are saying in the chat, why don't you have any clan mothers on or elders that can speak on the topic? And I understand that within um, whatever label you would like to use for Canadian native Canadians, there is a different dynamic when it comes to the cultural aspects around who has the authority to speak on certain issues, at least from what I've seen. But my question to you is who, even without outside of that culture, but in general in society, who, in your opinion, should or does get to decide who speaks for an entire community? Are you trying to speak for an entire community, or are you speaking for the individuals who resonate with yourself?
You know what? When I went through this whole process with my grandfather, Whitefish Reservation, Big River Reservation, all of us were taught. I did not realize that what I was talking about is taught in universities right now. I did not realize that until a lot of people started reaching out to me about it. I wasn't taught about this until I actually went to university, you know? It was a normality for me to learn these things in Whitefish Reservation. But today, and I'm not trying to knock down anybody, but our elders, a lot of them are not there at that moment. A lot of them have been through the residential schools and got forcibly ripped apart. And so a lot of our elders do not have a lot of this kind of knowledge, and a lot of them do at the very moment. Yes, they do. But for the most part, our youth are broken, and I look at that aspect of what the Indian Act actually did to the reservation. We were not allowed to get off a reservation since 1951, and we still didn't have clear, rights. As for now, they say we have rights such as Canadians, but near a reservation, you're in socialism with dictatorship. And at the same time, too, there's no legislation, there's no electoral act, and there's no transparency act in reservation. And at the same time, too, those kind of colonial, you know, politics that we have is not necessarily ours, not ours at all. Ours was natural law. We had hereditary chief of councils, and that's the thing that we have because it's all by design. In 1990, we finally got our school systems back. So then, before that, that was still about assimilation. So when you talk about assimilation and talk about all these people that think they know about what's really going on, the truth is most don't. Most people don't even know about what happened 100 years ago or 200 years ago. They only hear little stories. But even the Smithsonian, since 1492, anything that they have found, whether it's pyramids or whether it's written language, was dismissed. They would not look at that because of the divine conquest. So when you talk about these people saying that the clan mothers and everything, I totally agree. They should come on here as well too. But there's a lot that I'm saying that is actually true. And there's a lot of people that actually understand these things that have been taught their teachings, know about these things. But for the most part, our reservations are riddled with methamphetamine. Some people will have over 60% methamphetamine rates in the reservation right now. And that is the biggest, disease we have, other than sexual abuse, other than what do you call suicide, and other than corruption.
All the
So
negative
I would
things,
invite,
all the negative things. Find other words
yeah,
for.
yeah. But I would gladly invite people, into my life and everything, as we can have a proper discussion. But at the same time, too, we have to look at, rebuilding. We have to rebuild our elders. We have to rebuild our men. We have to rebuild our women, especially. And, I don't want to speak here today. I wouldn't want to if I had somebody smarter than me that I've actually seen. But it's not that I'm smart or anything. It's just that I have knowledge that my grandfather passed down, and that's the reason why I'm here. So,
So, just to like solidify what you're saying, I asked whether or not you were speaking on behalf of a community or trying to influence a community or speaking on behalf of yourself and simply allowing individuals who would like to hear what you have to say um, to listen. And it seems as though you have information that you feel is important to get out to the world. But do you feel as though you're speaking for the Native community itself?
I'm speaking for the old Native community. I'm not speaking for this Native community now. If that makes
Okay.
sense. I'm
I don't know.
speaking
Yeah, I
for
just want. I just
whatever.
wanted.
Yeah. I it,
Yeah, I just wondered
when
how
I
you
got
felt.
this when I got this knowledge here a long time ago, I was told to echo it. All of us were told to echo it when we were young, because we were the future at that time. And they said, you have to do it. That was from my grandfather and everybody. But this new generation, am I speaking for them? Probably not, because maybe they don't understand what the heck I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
Hmm. So this leads into my next question that I'd love to know. We're sticking on the idea of like your life experience and your experience as a marginalized Canadian because that's how I wrote it down because I wasn't sure what you were going to say. You're Everyone's different. With like because I knew we were going to talk about this topic, right? The idea of Indian, the idea of Native American, Native Canadian. But the question is, what has your experience, like in your own life, your own personal experience, been living in Canada as a minority or what is being considered a marginalized Canadian?
Good question. When I left, when I was in reservation, I had this big feeling that the world was going to crush me if I left the reservation. It felt so, safe. You know what I mean? I did experience racism in small towns before. But after leaving the reservation in 2001, because I was going to school in 98 in Saskatoon, but in 2001, I came over here in Alberta and I realized everybody was just trying to work to survive. I saw a lot of, Caucasians have two or three jobs just to fix their basements and their houses and everything. They could barely afford it, but they had double mortgages and they try to do everything. See, in a reservation, you get a free house. It's not entirely yours to own, but it is, coming from the Canadian government, CMHC, and the band. So, and I used to renovate so many houses over there just to find out that the next year we had to re-renovate them because, there's no sense of pride because they don't necessarily own it. You know what I mean? Coming over here in this white populace, Canada, I realized that, these guys put pride into their home and they understood what ownership really was about. I'm not going against my Native Americans, but it's what I saw. And some of the most wisest people that I ever known was an Italian, a white man, and whatnot, an East Indian. So when we start talking about these things, if I felt like marginalized and everything like that, it was actually just growing into my own that realizing that we're all spiritual people, we're all real people that are just trying to go through things in life and try to do the best we can for our families. And that's when I realized that my people were basically, institutionalized, because over here you could be anyone you want to be anybody who you can be. And I find racism? Yeah, I did find racism over here, but I fought with my heart and the racist people that actually were racist at one time, you know, you beat them by making them your friends. And the more you do that, the more the ignorance goes away. The relationship between Canada and its Native Americans, a lot of people are so ignorant to think that we all get $100,000 a year, which is totally not true. That's some of the things I had to correct. And, I would love $100,000, but that's not the truth. You know, the truth is we're just that we're manipulated by politics. We're manipulated by past stories. We're manipulated because of there's a division, there's a wall called a reservation in Canada. And if we could actually just get to know each other, then we realize that we're actually more alike than people think. So
I 100% agree. If people would just listen to each other rather than judging them off the bat. A lot of people have preconceived notions around what they believe an entire group is going to act or be like, and that's just simply not the case. Hence, back to the idea of identity politics, how we started the conversation off. I understand where you're coming from for sure. I definitely feel that. I know that you had discussed one more discussion within this realm, if you're still willing to talk about this stuff for a little bit. I know
sure.
that we have a few more topics here on the board, but you had spoken about residential schools. Is there anything that you'd like to bring up or discuss about anything that you've known, learned, or where you're at right now in 2023 with this topic?
Well, it depends on what you want to ask because it can get pretty deep, right? So,
Mhm. So I don't know how old you are. I don't know what stories you've heard from your parents, grandparents. I don't know what you're willing to share. But essentially, just the floor is open for you to describe your relationship with the topic itself as somebody who is closer to it at hand to the topic than myself.
see, my grandmother, there was 11 of them. There was 11 sisters. There's small boy girls. They went to Beauville and not Beauville. I forgot where the place. It's Saskatchewan. They were forced into residential schools. So there was horror stories that she told me. When she was 13, she was called a sinner because she had her period and she was okay.
Make sure make sure that you use certain words because I know it's going to get bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, she was what do you call, abused, My grandfather was abused as well too. There was a lot of things with an SA, especially with that. But when they came out, they realized that, he had to, in order for him to grow, you can't, you have to forgive regardless of anything. Because my grandfather, he was different in his way. He said, if I carry that burden on my back, I could carry it forever, but at any time I could put it down. That's how he was. My grandmother was a little bit different. She was really, really, really messed up. But she grew after a while. But she was very, lost in her own way because of the abuses that she had suffered. And for me, I grew up in a day school, so a day school is a reservation school where you were not allowed to speak Cree and got strapped and everything. And all these things, you were not allowed to do anything. Anything you said, you get thrown in the washroom and you're locked in there. So that's what I know. But my grandfather always told me this, and this is a hard thing that he used to tell me, regardless of anything, do not let your abusers own your life. Do not let your abusers have that much power over you. No matter what, you have to learn to forgive. It's not so much the white people, and this is what he was always used to tell me. It's not so much the residential school. Yes, the pain and the abuses came from there. But you got to also remember who is the powers that be that made that residential school? Was it Canada? Because it wasn't. It came from the Commonwealth underneath the Indian Act, and it came from the Indian Act to try to assimilate us, and that was to destroy us. But if you want to be powerful in this world, the first thing you have to do is learn to forgive because you don't want those devils and all those pains to control you in the way you think. You have to free your mind, just like Nelson Mandela did, you know?
Hmm.
So that's how he was.
Yeah, sounds like an insightful man. Taught you a lot.
I didn't really agree with him half the damn time till I got older. I never did. I used to think that would be easier just to throw stones, but he said, when you throw stones, you're breaking that bridge of communication. And if you don't build that bridge of communication, even if it's against your enemies, you're always going to be attacked. So that's how he was.
It seems to be the way it goes. Um, Always with these sentences leading us into the questions that I have lined up. So the next topic at hand, because this is a very deep topic, and we've been discussing it here for a little while now, and I do appreciate hearing from you as a marginalized individual in Canada, but you're much more than that. You have much more to your personality than just your race and your skin color. So I'd love to know your opinions on the Freedom Convoy itself, the first one, and then how you feel about moving into a Freedom Convoy 2.0, and then we'll continue the conversation after that. But so just to lay it out, how do you feel about the initial Freedom Convoy? What were you doing during the time? And how do you feel about a second Freedom Convoy coming to fruition?
You know, Native Americans don't think that there's freedoms, most of them that I've ever talked to, because they think it's just a white concept. What freedoms did we lose, they say, yet they're so institutionalized in the reservation that they don't even know that they actually don't have real freedoms in a reservation. It's like when if you are in a jail cell and you grew up there, that becomes normality. Just like Socrates said, if you he had this experiment where he put some people in a cave and it was dark, and he built a fire, and all he seen was shadows until one person left the cave, saw the beautiful world, and came back. And then, as soon as he told everybody there's a beautiful world out there, nobody believed him. And that's the same thing with my Native Americans right now. They think that they're living in natural law and their own customs. The chief and councils are not theirs. So when I talk about these things, about freedoms, when I saw them fight for freedoms against restrictions, about natural law, not about this man-made concept of medical and everything, we value our own little world here with this thing, this man-made construct, and then we look at how to suppress rights. When we really realize that, for me, Native Americans should know, what did they do to us in the 80s? They put us down the hallways, made us get these flu vaccination shots where some people died on the reservation and some people got really sick. And it's so funny that most municipalities around Big River First Nations didn't even get it. And we asked CTV News and CBC about it, and they shut it down because we were used as guinea pigs, and that's the truth. So that's one, that's how we feel. And at the same time, too, now they're doing this convoy where they're trying to make us take this jab. I don't trust the government one bit when it comes to that because it's our health. So when they're trying to make us suppress us, take away our jobs and every single thing, I almost got shut down because, good thing I'm essential services, but they shut down a lot of businesses and restaurants shut down. They think it's about health. It's more than that. And that's why I said, this one woman posted a video and she said veterans are, like the real veterans for me are this was on Remembrance Day, what do you call the convoy. And
I
that was
remember
like,
seeing it. Yeah.
yeah, and
I
a
think that
lot of
was
people were,
Fire the Keys, but
yeah, a lot of people were pissed off about that because they were saying, how dare you, that stolen valor. But for me, we never had freedoms from these soldiers in World War II. We never did. We lost freedoms. 1951, we got out of the reservations. And even when we fought in the World War, we came back, got lands because we wanted freedoms. They taken our land and they taken our status. So Canada wasn't very, really good to us. So therefore, did we really fight, for freedoms for Canada prior to World War II? No. So these soldiers never fought for my freedoms one bit. When they tried to put a poppy on me, I said, nope, it's not. My grandfather, don't take the poppy. Respect the soldier, but don't take the poppy, he said, because they never valued your rights. And when that soldier came to me and said, I'm putting this poppy on you because if I didn't, you'd be speaking German. Do you know that? And I said, what's the difference? I speak English. What's the difference? I speak English. You guys did that to us. There's no different than the German. So they didn't expect that. But when I saw the Freedom Convoy speak for my rights truthfully because of what I value in my business in Canada, I looked at that. That was the real soldier for me. That was my soldier, not the soldiers of Canada, but that was my soldier. And that's what I had to put out there. I said there was a different perspective from a Native American because at least he's fighting for my voice that needs to be heard. So hopefully that makes sense. And 2.0, I think the 2.0 for me is not what they think is 2.0. I think it has a lot to do with the clan mothers and, supporting the eighth fire. And that has a lot to do with unification of the white populace, the Native American, the black populace, and the yellow populace. We look at the four colors on the circle, right? Hopefully that makes sense. So
Well, the first part makes sense, but one thing that doesn't make sense to me that I've heard a lot of individuals discussing is this idea of the eighth fire and lighting of the eighth fire. Can you explain that to me?
it's just the unification between nations. That's all it is. It's unification between nations because everything is so colluded right now. Everything is so, you know, we have identity
But what is
politics.
it?
We
Is it like
have,
a prophecy? Is it an idea that's supposed to happen? That's supposed to come to fruition? Is there certain parameters that elaborate what lighting the eighth fire is? Like, because some people say that it seems crazy that people are saying it, and other people are saying yes, it's happening, and I'm sitting here saying I don't know what you're talking about.
well, I can't speak for the clan mothers, but they have their own signs. Yeah, that's all I could say. I'm not going to put words in my mouth or in their mouth because I have no right to. But what I do know is one thing is that the eighth fire has everything to do with the unification between the white populace, Native Americans, and all cultures and creeds around Canada and the United States with the Native Americans. See, there was seven fires lit in prior too, but the eighth one has a lot to do with unifying. And what's going on right now with the COVID-19 and losing, people losing their rights right now, and what's going on with the social credit score and all these things that people don't even understand. Most Native Americans don't even quantify anything, but for the people that do, they understand that Canada is actually for sale by a corporation, and that is them. 51% of
Before
our
we move
natural
on,
resources.
before we move on to that sort of thing, though, I do
Yeah,
want to really try to get to the understanding the root idea of what lighting the eighth fire means, because also people in the chat are describing the fact that they're asking the question and describing that the seventh fire was never lit. When was the seventh fire lit? So I'm going to ask you, when was the seventh fire lit? And then also, what does it mean to light the fire? What is going on? What
yeah.
is this tradition? What is
No,
this
it's like a lot of
thing?
people are saying the seventh fire wasn't lit, but you're gonna have to look at the four ladies that I'm talking to. But there's supposed to be six, I believe, but four of them. They said it was lit. Now the eighth fire has to be lit, and that's about unification, no more racism, trying to work together as a collective soul and a spirit. That's what it's supposed to be about. And a lot of people will say yes and no, it's not. So I can't really speak for the old ladies, and that's what I'm saying. Like you have to
No, no.
talk to the
What
clan
is
mothers of
like
that.
this idea that we're discussing? Because they're saying there's a seventh fire, a eighth fire that should be lit. There's obviously been six previous before that that clearly everybody is in agreement that already have been lit. So
Yeah.
what is the idea around lighting those fires? Is this a native Canadian tradition? Is this something within the culture that I just don't understand? Lighting the fire. There's different
Yeah.
stages of within history. What's going on? What is it?
Well, they say it's from the Anishinaabe. Like we have the seventh fire for us Cree. That was prior to, but that was our prophecy before, especially whatever. But the Anishinaabe have a very deep rooted understanding with their own, their prophecies and everything. And for the most part, when you look at their prophecies, it is fairly true. I think it was the fifth or sixth fire. That's when no, this fifth fire, I believe, or the fourth fire. When they bring with when they seen the light skinned people. So I'm not going to claim that I know that's their stuff. But what I'm trying to do is trying to support what do you call the clans mothers, right? And what they were saying is that the eighth fire is going to be lit up in Winnipeg, and you're asking me what is it about? What it really is about is the unification of all races within Canada and the United States. That's what it's about. We're trying to we're trying to bridge that gap that everybody wasn't bridging before, because in politics it's usually like a casino. Cowboys and Indians will play, and the government always wins, and that's because of separation, and there's no unity. It was about racism, it was about separation and everything like that. But now today, like when we already know what the Go stance prior to what they were talking about is like, soon the white man will be no longer. And what we used to say about the white man will be no longer, it's not because they're no longer, it's because they got so powerful that they fight themselves now. And what I mean by fighting themselves is that, they they are fighting themselves with racism. They're fighting themselves with identity politics, that they actually cancel themselves out. And when, as soon as you call him a racist, he'll go back. Before he didn't care. He was powerful, and that's what we mean by the ghost dance and what do you call and the round dance and that in that prophecy prior to that the white man will be no longer. Now that's as far as we go with that. But we're talking about the eighth fire, and I can't really speak on the aspect of the clans brothers. I have to be careful what I say at that. But all I know is that's what they're trying to do in Winnipeg. And the thing is, everybody is canceling each other out because everybody, maybe they know, maybe they don't know, maybe they have valid reasons. But the thing is, you still have to kind of look at what these older ladies are doing, and you have to either support them, and if you don't, then you don't. But all I'm saying is that I have to support them because that's where I have to do. I have to give respect to the old ladies. So I don't know if that makes
So
sense.
just to solidify, you're saying that the idea of lighting these fires, they're sort of lighting the fire is like these different fires are predictions that have come true in the past, from the Anishinaabe uh, culture, which is they're here in Ontario, are they not? And in Manitoba.
I believe so. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
because we have Cree, Blackfoot, go to Lakota, Dakota Sioux, and it goes down to Dene, and from that point on it goes to the Mohawks and the Anishinaabe on that side. So yeah,
yeah. So, so what I have to ask you is there are very clear differences between cultural practices within Native Canadian or Indian cultures, even just within Canada, not even comparing it to the United States. And so when you're utilizing ideologies that come from a culture that you were not necessarily a part of growing up or is separate from your native culture, how do you feel? Do you hold all Native Canadian and Native American cultures to the same standard and um, take them at face value, or do you uphold one over the other? Because it's very
that's
an
a
interesting
no.
question from
That's
my
a
side.
good question. That's a good question. You see, we were closely related down to the Blackfoot, although we used to fight a lot of times. And a lot of times, even the Sioux, we used to fight a lot of times, but a lot of times we would trade. So when you look at the aspect of where they're at, people have this man-made construct that we're all supposed to be separated. We have their own little laws and everything. No, we're very nomadic. We were very spiritual. We understood each other. Sometimes we would barter with other tribes. We'd have wars. We'd trade women, because it was naturally what we needed to do. So when we're talking about do we uphold others more or less, you know, tribes come from different jurisdictions and geographic locations, and because they come from different geographic locations, you know psilocybin is a lot of times our people use that. Magic mushrooms for healing, right? Sweetgrass is for healing. Peyote is for healing, but that's south. So wherever they come from, they know their medicines under geographical locations, the terrains. So will our languages differ. A lot of people said that we came from the Cherokee Nation. When you come down over there and just separate over 1,000 years and become different dialects. See, when you look at the Cree, we have how many? We have Swampy, we have Plains, we have Woodlands Cree, we have all these Cree, languages. At the same time, too, some of the Dene words are in Cree as well, too. So when we really think about it, it's kind of like the Old Testament, the Bible, a long time ago that turned into, every other, like whether it's Judaism or or the Quran, it came from the same place to begin with, and it just separated. So they're not so much. They have a distinct understanding, and when there are laws, they have a distinct understanding of how they're supposed to go. But I believe that that's where they came from. The same with us. We all came from the same beginning. The difference is we're just separated over geographic locations and different territories, and after a while, our languages differ, right? So, and when you ask me, who do I uphold more than everything? I think we all learn depending on our situation, our times, and our jurisdiction or our geographic location, what the Creator gave us, whether it's medicine. So everybody's valid, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? And I can't really judge anybody because they might know something that I don't. So,
With that being said, I do need to ask you this question here because it does kind of lead into one that I have on the table. In a lot of your content, you do seem to uphold Christian values and beliefs. Why do you often prescribe to that ideology when it has come with such visceral reaction to the culture that you did grow up with? Not only you, there's
okay.
lots of other cultures, right? You don't have to be native, you could be
Yeah.
black, you could be anything. It's just like I
Yeah.
just wonder why you do uphold those values. I know a lot of people do, but just posing the question to you.
Okay. First and foremost, I don't believe in the religious aspect of it. I don't. Do I believe in some parts of the Bible? I believe it was a Bible of history. It had nothing to do with the Bible belief. When I look at Jesus, he was a man. When he was a man, he was a very great teacher. He talked about philosophy and the inner workings of the spirit. He did not tell you God was this. As a matter of fact, he told you God was within you. It's not around you. He talked about the man made, the spirit within, the transgressions of man and everything. And he talked about these things. And these are the things that philosophers talk about. He wasn't talking about, you have to go over here, fast for this many days, jump over here, do jumping jacks, and you're saved. No, he said a lot of things that is really true in my Native American culture because it was about, what do you call them, natural law. And that's what he talked about. He talked about the natural aspect of a man deep down inside. He wasn't talking about God. So when I look at him, yes, maybe he was a prophet because of the fact that he could actually understand what would happen if a man lives in sin for so long. And that's the same thing with us. We talk about in my Native American culture, especially prior to colonization, we had Native American women that were so powerful that they were just as powerful as the elders there because they were elders. In some cultures, they were even more revered as being the most divine thing in a culture. And today, what happened with Christianity, they destroyed that. So when I look at the aspect of this Christianity, that's a false Christianity to begin with because they're not upholding Jesus' teachings. They're using the man for power, is what I'm saying. So when I look at Jesus himself alone, I look at him as the truth, and the truth meaning that he spoke the truth. He spoke so much truth that his own church at the time killed him. His own people walked away from him, and everybody, he died an innocent man, and everybody hated him for it. As a matter of fact, if he came over here and knocked on most of these Christians' churches, they would spit in his face. That's what I honestly believe. So when you talk about Christian values, it's not about the book that I believe in. It's the man himself, because at least he walked with truth, and that's what I walk with. So
I understand where you're coming from. I hear you say the words natural law quite a bit. Can you elaborate on that a little bit and just tell people what you mean, or even just describe it to me?
you go into the environment, you go into the wilderness, you see wolves, you see the fresh air, you see trees growing. Trees growing, they have a lot of roots deep down. You have to get nutrients. That's the same with our souls, our spirit. If we don't have the right nutrients, our tree will grow bad. As a matter of fact, with the wrong environment, our limbs would break in pieces, is what I'm saying. So it all depends on the environment and everything. You can learn a lot from the environment and watching animals. At the same time, our spirits ourselves too. We forgot who we were. We forgot the natural truth within us. There's black and white inside of us. Most of us are living in the gray zone. And that's when we think that, we're going to go, there's a little bit of truth here and I'll benefit for this, but that's a white lie. What I mean by white lie, there's a little bit of a lie, but then I can benefit. And then you keep going your life all the way down and you wonder why your life sucks is because you weren't truthful back there in the life. And this is the outcome, everything about the balancement of nature comes from nature itself. Everything is a construct. Everything is consciousness. A rock has a soul, which we were taught. Time is a construct. It's irrelevant. We in man-made concept of this world measure time by a clock, but the time itself is walking in time. It's not measured by a clock. It's the energy of everything behind it and in front of it. And right now, it's quantum physics. And quantum physics of the mind, body, and soul, it needs to come together, especially in environment. And everything that you'll ever learn that is the true nature, the true aspect of natural law comes from nature itself, not this man-made construct. That's why we've forgotten who we were, and we've forgotten the understanding of what animals actually feel. Or, we've forgotten that water should have its own rights, its own purpose, its own living, because it is a living thing. It gives so much to the environment, but we just think about fear, this to fix something in our man-made world. And that's what we are. We live in this glass house and we've forgotten the real existence is all around us. So that's what I'm saying about this natural law. It's consciousness, it's love, it's understanding, it's really something deep rooted. It's not just money, if that makes sense.
Yes, I understand where you're coming from. I definitely do see the idea of you're talking about like natural, like animalistic instinct and how each animal has their own biological path that they naturally coerce themselves with, and human beings don't necessarily always find themselves on that path when it comes to the way that we interact with work, school, the responsibilities that we focus on. We're not really always focused on the things that would naturally make us happy. Um, but with other nuanced situations in there. While we still have a bunch of people in the stream, we're at the middle of the show here on the open debate. I'm going to give a shameless self plug, let everybody know that we have a few more conversations coming up throughout the week. Tomorrow we have Dua Libra for some psychic, conspiratorial, weird, real fun, just in depth stuff that's just going to be really relaxed. Then on Wednesday we have a full-blown communist who's been in here a few times, Saint, if you guys remember this guy. He's a really good individual who speaks well and is interested in communism. And so on Friday, we have Big Red coming in. It will be an interesting discussion about the convoy itself and how it happened there and much more. But I just wanted to let everybody know we have lots of discussions coming up throughout the next week. Becca was supposed to come on. She doesn't want to come on. She's always welcome in the future, but she does not want to come on this week, and that's more than fine. We have lots of individuals who are interested in the conversation, and I appreciate everybody who has been on so far. I appreciate Adrien so far throughout the conversation. And anybody out there who's interested in coming on for a discussion, make sure you reach out in the DMs. I am interested in hearing anybody who has a firm perspective on any sort of belief. That's what we're doing here in the new year. One-on-one conversations, getting to the root causes of why people believe what they believe without the interruptions of anyone but me rambling sometimes like I am right now. So I appreciate you all being here and listening to that shameless self-plug.
Thank you.
With that being said, though, man, I have more questions for you. I got more things going on. One thing that I do want to ask you about is the idea of creating content here on TikTok. And have you noticed any changes from the time that you started posting to the time that we are currently in and you are posting content?
Yes, I do. I mean, I got 20 accounts later. So, when I started this battle, I was on Facebook. And there's only two things I could do. Like I told you when my elders told me I'd be fighting my people. I came on here and I was okay until I didn't realize that a lot of people from Facebook were actually on TikTok. So they started attacking me. And I thought, I'm going to have fun with this. You guys destroy my business already. You guys with the lies and everything. I might as well just have fun. But at the same time, too, the reason why everything changed from then on to now is because I was full blown. Like I have Casper on here, and I told Casper, "You're a white savior. All you like doing is putting gas on the fire." And I said that to native dad as well too. All you're doing is just trying to create division with the white populace, and you have no right to. But well, you do have a right to, but it's invalid. You know, you're never going to get anywhere in this life. I've said these things is because I meant them. My native people, my elders at the time pushed me for it, and I had a lot of people hate me for it. At the end of the day, that's what I've taken on myself. I take it very personally. I looked at the white populace and I said, you know what? These guys can't even speak for themselves anymore. And I know that it's wrong to be picking on people such as that just because they have white skin. And to blame the government and blame every single white person is disgusting. So that's why I went on there. And I said, if you want to tell a lie about me, I'll tell the truth about everything in this Native American reservation. Talk about corruption, talk about this, I talk about SA, I talk about suicide, I talk about drugs. And you got to blame all the white people for that because you have no recourse for anything. So that's why I did that, is only because I wanted to make certain that people understood, even though they hated me, they called me the backstabber of Native American society. It wasn't that. How are you ever going to grow into society if you do not look in the shadows of your sins first? They may have given you the apple, but you ate it, is what I'm saying. Now, the point that I'm trying to say is we need to have, responsibility because at 40 years old, 35 years old, 60 years old, people are still doing SA in my reservation, and then they're still blaming the residential school, which is bull. That is bull. That's 100% bull. And then who's speaking for those children? Certainly not any of them. The only time most of these people will speak is when that person is dead and gone. But they'll never talk about the essay that actually happened there. We can stop it, but nobody's even talking about it. That's the first time. Those are the first 10, those are the first 10, what do you call, accounts that I had. The last 9 accounts was trying to educate people on a lot of things and talking politics. And I had to turn it around. And that's why I look at all these Native Americans that are pissed off at these comments right now. You could say whatever you guys want, but somewhere along the line, I went into your demons and I shook hands with them. Not only that, I roundhouse cock slapped all of them. And there's nothing you guys can do about it except keep on trying to knock me down. But at the end of the day, I walked out of there and I'm still here today. And I'm turning it all around. And you guys are losing because at the end of the day, if you're not going to unite, like I said, Casper, if you really wanted to do something, why don't you try to unite your white populace with our Native Americans and stop using our victimization for your own gain? Do
Right. One
what
thing
you
I
got to
will
do.
say is don't address the comments. Don't worry about the
I'm not even,
comments
I
too much.
pushed the comments over. I
Let's
pushed the
try to
comments
keep it
over.
between us. They'll say whatever they
Okay.
want, and
Okay.
obviously it's impactful when you can see it, obviously. But if you want to relate that to a question, they are bringing up individual things where they disagree with what you're saying. But why does it matter? Obviously
It
disagreeing with
matters.
somebody sometimes can matter, but like in this context, why is it so important that their voice is, if you are both trying to better a specific culture, you're all trying to say that I want to keep my native heritage. I want to ensure my culture stays alive. This is how I think I should do it. Why is that such an issue? And this is what I'm trying to understand because somebody said in the comments, a lot of what Adrien says makes a lot of sense. And I thought to myself, then why do so many people have such a visceral reaction to what you're saying? Is there a way that you could say it differently to get your point across that doesn't make people
No, I
feel
can't.
so attacked? And the way that you're describing seems as though you're very to the point. You have what you want to say, and you're going to say it the way that you say it. People are either going to listen or they're not. But if you were to take a step back and dissect the points of what you're saying, it's not always the way it comes across, from
No, I
my
get it.
opinion.
I totally get it. And you know what? Like I said, when I was a circle keeper trying to talk to a lot of people, especially in All Chiefs Conference, nicest way in the world. People will say, yes, I understand, and then they walk away. The day I started throwing it at them really hard, the day I started throwing them really hard, all these people got mad, all of them. And then when I started battling them, when it came down to debates or my point of views, they started blocking me because they knew what I was doing after a while. Why it's so important is because you have to separate what a lie is from anything else. You have to, then after a while, you have to unite. Because if I said things to these guys, they're so egotistical, they're so egotistical that they might even not even, you know, say it unless you're playing the same ball game as them. So why I said it a certain way is because there was a great divide from day one on TikTok between the native TikTok and the cowboys. There was racism already. And every time there's something that's politics that comes on from Canadian government or before the elections, it turns political anyways. There's always this Indian problem. So what I had to do was destroy this Indian problem the best way I can. Now they all hated me at one time. Most of my followers that are Native American actually understand me now, but they hated me at one time. And if I said it nicely to them and I actually started working with the white populace, they will call me a traitor because that's what actually happens on Native TikTok unless you're an ally. Ally. So I decided I'm not going to be an ally if it's something very racial. I'm going to go against the grain on everybody. They might hate me. I don't care if I have to be a martyr for that. But later on, when they start seeing me, just like we're on here, this is why they're here, is to open debate. We're actually talking about real things. And they came here. So now they're here to listen. If they don't want to listen, they're just going to be more angry. Great. Echo my words. Echo my words down the line. Try to cancel me. You're just making me more, relevant. That's what they don't understand. That's why I needed to do this, to be relevant with the truth. I don't know how else to explain it.
No, no, no. I definitely see where you're coming from, and I recommend if anybody out there is screen recording and they want to repost these streams, definitely do it. I don't say anything in a live stream that I'm not comfortable with reiterating, and I only find it as free promotion. I think that it's great. I'm stoked when people screen record and put the content out there. I urge you to do it. Please do it as much as you can. Create a whole new account just to do it. I'd love that. I'm not going to pay you, but I would love for you to do it. You might get paid one day. One day you might, but yeah, no, it's one of those things. You should be convicted in the beliefs that you have, and definitely don't speak on a topic unless you have something that you actually want to say about it. And I wasn't trying to tone police you or tell you that you should be speaking a different way. I'm saying that with a different tone, you may get through to different people. But with your description, it does show that if you have a belief that you're firm with and you're convicted in, speak however you'd like. And sometimes being more inflammatory is going to get yourself in front of the eyes of individuals that even if they don't agree, they're going to be discussing what you are talking about. And if you want your ideologies pushed into the forefront of the discussion, you want people talking about it. Whether they are agreeing or not, they're still talking about what topic you had brought up. So I understand where you're coming from because you have an ideology that you want people to understand and think of, and so you're trying to get it out there.
There you go.
And by the way, I can see Ajna doing her job out there moderating, but everybody keep it respectful. I understand not everybody agrees with each other in the chat, but just do your best to have an actual conversation, sort of as Adrien and I here are doing. I know that you can. I know that you're able. You guys aren't children. You're able to have a real conversation. So do it with each other, please. We are here. And that's what it is. It's the open debate. It's open for anybody to have their opinion. And there will be lots of different types of individuals with different opinions on this channel that you will be able to agree with or disagree with. So don't attack anybody. We're all here for the conversation. If you're here in the chat, then you're more than likely in the right place. If you stuck around for this long, we probably agree on more than we disagree on.
I don't see the comments. I swept them off. I knew it was getting pretty heavy at the end of the day. Like, I'm glad they're commenting. That's all I was here for. Like I told everybody, whether you like it or not, you guys are going to hear. And if you guys don't like it, and that's totally fine. I probably got to your demons somewhere. And hopefully, maybe one day we could actually have a proper discussion. But if not, it's doing its job so far. So whatever.
I 100% agree. Uh, this is not a safe space. This is a place for individuals to let loose their emotions and be heard, and it has been from day one. It's a place that's probably safer than any actual safe space you could ever go to. And I will hold that true. Everybody is welcome here, and everybody's opinions are welcome here, but you need to be willing to hear those opinions. So if that's not a place for you, then this isn't the place for you. But moving on, I want to ask you the question. You said that you were on Facebook before, but do you currently use any other platforms outside of TikTok?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I was with Twitter for a while, but I just, I couldn't understand it, and Elon took over and still don't understand it. You know what? I made such an impact on TikTok to the point everybody blocked me, and I'm pretty proud of that. So, and if I can block people, especially if they're that angry, and then like my elders told me, it's time to flip the switch. Now all these people are slowly understanding. Like if I burnt them on TikTok to for them to understand that they hated me at one time, and then finally they're coming back. That's the platform I have to regrow again. You see, at one time I was 100,000, then I went to 46,000, I went to 32,000, 24,000. I lost all these things because every time I got in, they started mass attacking me. I knew I was saying some things that are very controversial to get me blocked, and I was actually doing it for pride to get me blocked and get kicked off. But this account right now is not going to get kicked off because I know exactly what I need to say now. So, now they're forced to stick with me, or they can tell their people to block me. But I'm going to tell you something. When you tell your people to block me, it just goes to show you how scared you are of this kind of a truth. So maybe it's truth, maybe it's not. But for me, that's what I feel is truth. So
Hmm. I see everyone in the comments is trying to say, "Oh, he's on Facebook." I said other than Facebook. He already said that he was on Facebook. Um,
yeah,
yeah, so other than Facebook, there's no other.
no.
Well, accidental gift, whatever. I still appreciate it. Make me feel like a pretty little lady there, King Schmitty. Um, because that's a rose. Roses always make you feel like a pretty little lady. Men don't usually get those, so I appreciate it anytime I do. Men don't usually get roses until they're 6 feet under. So anytime we get those, make me feel like a pretty little lady. Thank you. I appreciate that. Um, no, no, no. I feel what you're saying. I am right there. I understand. I understand the situation. Being on other platforms, I'm on the different platforms for sure. Just YouTube, right? I'm on Rumble and stuff, and like all this. I just don't use it. I used mine. Hey, thanks for the cap. I appreciate the gifts. You don't have to gift, but I appreciate it. Um, I'm on Rumble and stuff like that, but I don't branch out too far from TikTok. TikTok's great, even if the viewership and likes and stuff like that are not all 100% real engagement. The engagement allows you to be on the platform. The platform keeps you there. It's ridiculous. It really wants you to be here on the platform. So it's fun. It's engaging, and I like doing these sort of things. The live streaming platform is unmatchable. I wouldn't be able to live with you this fluently, this easily with this type of interaction on any other platform. I can put up a poll, I can put up different discussions, the gifs, things like that. Like every single aspect of this, it brings you to the platform. So I have to ask you this question in relation to TikTok and everything like that. Do you think that everyone that you've discussed or everybody that you see in the comments is strong enough to have the type of conversation that we're having this evening? So a lot of individuals, not calling anybody out in the chat because literally I'm not thinking of anybody, but when you look at the comments and you get angry when you see certain comments, should you take a step back and realize that not everybody is in the same mental state that you and I are in to have this type of conversation?
Well, I guess you would have to build the atmosphere first and foremost, just like you have, you know. And when I used to go on lives with a lot of people, I just knew it was going to be like, an ambush. So I prepared myself quite well for a lot of interviews, especially with radio stations, and I just knew they're going to say things, right? So I've always kind of understood, and I had to come into my own kind of, my own. ideology and belief system in my heart. And that's the thing that most people don't understand about themselves. Most people don't even know who they are. A lot of people say, "This is my name. This is what I do. This is how I, operate. This is my belief system." But and I'll always ask this of ladies and women, why are you insecure? They're insecure because of their sexuality or their relationship or a lot of things or their looks. And that's the biggest thing, if they're insecure about who they are, like really, then having an interview like this could probably tear them apart. It all depends. So a lot of people can get where they need to go, just like me and you. But I think they have to have a step back and just try to figure out who they are first and foremost and love themselves for who they are. Is that an answer that makes sense?
No, that does make a lot of sense, and it does put some things in a perspective that I wasn't taking into account earlier in my life. So that okay, does make sense. Dua Libra in the comments, or Ajahn says in the comments, Dua Libra, are you interviewing tomorrow? Hopefully she's coming on. We're gonna have some weird psychic interviews, um, paranormal discussions, things just on a relaxed nature. Because all the interviews so far have been pretty intense. Like, right, you got a lot to say. You got a firm belief system. Everybody else that I've discussed, they all have firm beliefs, and I'm interested. I want to hear where you're coming from, but I also want to take it back and relax a little bit sometimes. That's what we'll be doing tomorrow, and then getting back into like these heavy, deep discussions. Um, but no, man, that completely did describe what I was trying to ask. So I got questions here, man. I got things written down. Um, One thing that I just wonder in general, with what you're discussing online and the way that you do conduct yourself, do you ever feel as though you're being specifically targeted, not only by your peers, but with what you're saying, as though you're opening yourself up to specific targeting in the future by governmental bodies? Is it something that you need to worry about speaking and opening up your mind, speaking on the internet as you do? Is it something you
Yes.
worry about?
I don't worry about it, but I know that it's going to probably happen. My business was like my vehicles. If you've seen a video when a guy put racist on my vehicle and smashed the windshield, popped the tire, my office windows got smashed. They threatened a lot of people online, especially my Google reviews, and they were targeting anybody that actually had another. So it turned into a lot of things, right? That's just from that aspect. My family, there was a lot of violence in my reservation just because of, I was related to them, where they got into a lot of gang, like, violence and got beat up and were fighting, and a lot of things just by association, relation. So do I, but my auntie's always said, just keep doing what the fuck you're doing. She used to say, just keep freaking doing it. Don't let anybody bully that truth inside of you because that's the reason why we're down. So, I know that the government and everything, they had a stakeout on me for about a good 3 weeks, I think, because of the lies that my own Native Americans put out there saying that I'm a child trafficker. So these are the things that I know can happen, especially with lies and especially with influence. I got, my account got shut down once by that modern warrior bastard. And also with Sherry McKay, I mean, she got all of her people after me. And that's just TikTok. But I'm just saying when it comes down to the governmental aspect, I know that they're going to come after my business. I know there's going to be a lot of things, especially if I go down to Winnipeg, especially if I go down to Vancouver, because they might be paying for my flight to Vancouver on the 18th to go talk with, some rally. So these kind of things, and I fully recognize that there is threats there and there could be a lot of things. But at the same time, too, you know what? I don't care. I got kicked around by my own native people. My own family, a lot of my family walked away from me because of my political understandings or my ideologies. So I lost every single thing in this world that meant something to me to a point where I'm just saying, you know what? What else can I lose other than my life? You know what? And you guys are making me famous if you guys decide to shoot me because of it. I don't care. The point is that when you have a conviction in your heart, and if I die tomorrow, I know I'm going to go to a good damn place because I at least I stood up for truth. I can be hated for telling the truth than loved for a lie. I'd rather be hated for telling the truth. And at least I know that I'm a man. I'm actually a fucking man that actually can speak the true volume of my heart. And that is worth something to me. And I'm gonna, if I ever, anything ever happened to me, at least I could say, hell, I gave it the best shot I could and I can die happy. So if that makes sense, I don't know.
It all makes sense, man. Everything you're saying tonight makes sense. One thing that I want to ask, because I saw in the comments they said something about so now there's paid conservatives. I'd like you to explain your involvement with the Convoy 2.0 and where you stand, what your what your involvement is, what you would or will be doing, because I think that they took that as you were like a paid protester that was being flown out to Vancouver to attend the convoy. And that's not the case from what I know. So I'd love to hear what your involvement is with the Convoy 2.0.
I'm not a paid, but I will take donations to get my ass over there if that's the case. But the thing is, I know for a fact I don't support the conservatives. People don't understand that. I don't support any political party at all. I only support myself, and I'm waiting for some hero to rise. I don't give a shit who it is, as long as it's a grassroots movement. That's what I'm looking for. As far as I'm concerned, most of these political entities, whether it's all the way down to Pierre, whatever the fuck his name, Povier, whatever his name is, that guy, he was a World Economic Forum. All these people are liars. And that guy is doing the exact same thing that Justin Trudeau did in 2016 to the natives. All he did was give them a back rub. And that's what he's doing. He's just pointing out all the bad things. And I know what politics is because I've seen it how many years. And they always use the Native American person for their politics. And then finally, as soon as something happens, they forget about the Indian. Justin Trudeau promised water, he never delivered. Justin Trudeau wore a headdress and then he walked away from the Native American little meeting that he had, only gave him 5 minutes. Justin Trudeau lied in every single thing, the whole 9 bits, to save face. So when you look at it, that's a liberal. They're liars. NDP, they're liars. The Green Party wants to pass Bill C5, and that's something to do with, a slap to the wrist if you're a pedophile, no jail time. And now you look, that's the Green Party. NDP, Mrs. Notley, she's an idiot. 34 or $38 billion to walk into people's houses and put a little sticker saying that they never got the COVID-19 shot. But people don't get it. And now I'm looking at, our leader for conservatives. I don't give a shit about him. Because as far as I'm concerned, they're all circle jerking each other. That's all they're doing. So when you ask me if I'm going over there, I'm just going to speak the same way that I'm speaking right now. I'm telling the white populace, native populace, the white populace, everything that ever went on in the reservation is happening to Canada right now, and you guys don't even fucking know it. That's what I wanted to tell them. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the only truth I'm going with.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you see me?
I can see you. It's just like you are you're stuck. You're frozen.
Yeah, I think it may just be frozen for a bit, but I'm cool like this.
Yeah.
It's okay. I can keep it
Yeah.
going. Just
I'm cool with it, too.
maybe a
Yeah.
few screen recorders out there, and it definitely impacts the stream a little bit, but that's okay. If you want to share this, I would love. So anybody in the chat, let me know. Can you hear what's going on? Also, make sure that you tap the screen, share the stream. We're going to be going for another half an hour, and we're going to be having the conversation. So no, it did make sense. I understand exactly where you're coming from. And so a lot of people have a visceral reaction when they hear the idea of the convoy. And you said grassroots movement. So what are your beliefs? I asked you earlier, what did you think about like the initial convoy movement? But when you said grassroots, you didn't really explain. Like, how do you think it came to fruition and how did you hear about it?
So I talked to Tamara. Okay. I'm in cahoots with her. I talked to, a lot of people from Canadians from Truth. I talked to, the Freedom Convoy. I talked to all these people. I've talked to the guy that you're going to have tomorrow, Red, I talk to a lot of people down the line, and it's not because of what, you know, and we all agree on one thing. A lot of people want to go to Danielle Smith. A lot of people want to go down to the Independence Party. A lot of people want to go down and try to shake up feathers with NDP because they don't believe in those bastards. But I'm just saying, when we started really talking at Big Red's place and talking to a lot of people, I stated to them clearly, we don't vote for no fucking political organization right now. What we're going to do is invite all those political organizations down with the truckers and Native Americans alike that want to be there. And we're going to hash it out. Even if we have to have a UFC fucking ring where to beat the shit out of each other to a point to actually come to a conclusion. The point is we need to unite and talk and have uncomfortable discussions. And most people are not willing to do that. And they only have their egos and their ideologies for what they think Canada should be. But I've always said this: doesn't matter what you do in Canada, you can be the next prime minister and you won't change a effing thing. You will never change things. That's exactly what happened to our chief and councils. We have some honorable men and women in reservation chief and council systems, but it never changes anything. In Canada, all it does is passes laws that actually constrict us like a boa constrictor to the point where we don't even know what freedoms are anymore. So the point is, those politicians, when we're talking with the Freedom Convoy, and I said to them, they will never change a fucking thing in Canada. As a matter of fact, all they're doing is circle jerking each other and using us for another political gain, just like they did to Native Americans. What we need to do is come together and figure out what really needs to happen. So the Convoy 2.0, at the same time, too, I don't know if they're going to adopt that into the 8th Fire in Winnipeg, but I'm just saying they are there fully supporting the clan mothers. And that's something that these Native Americans should know, that there's actually something that's coming through where we actually are coming together. That's okay. Yeah, go ask mommy then. Thank you. Sorry about that, but yeah, that's what I
No,
said.
that's okay.
So hopefully that makes
Yeah.
sense. That the convoy is actually supporting the clan mothers. The convoy is actually looking at Native Americans and saying we need to come together, and they are actually following us. So we're not following them.
And so that will be something that you believe people would be able to see when these individuals enact what they're going to enact for this Convoy 2.0. The idea of the clan mothers being in support of this, from what I've heard, is they do not make statements online about their political opinions. You can
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, but
You know,
it's
I,
sort
I
of
can't
like
I
up
can't
to us
speak
to see.
I cannot speak for the clan mothers. I cannot speak for the truckers. I can only speak for one thing. After the 8th Fire is lit, then we have to have the political aspect of unity. And that happens after that. And that is only because we have to come together as a collective society and a nation. What I mean by that, it's the black people have to talk, the white people have to talk, natives and the Asians have to talk, and we have to come together in unity, not be divided by political divide, racial divide, identity politics, and all the other bullshit, because that really isn't irrelevant. The only time it's irrelevant is when there's laws, country, and racism and identity politics, because everybody's too fucking selfish to understand their spirit. That's what, if that makes sense. So
Mhm. I feel that. I feel where you're coming from. I feel the idea that you're looking for change in the future. You want to see things progress, which is an interesting ideology. People would often assume that someone that's speaking the way you are is conservative, yet everything that you've spoken about this evening is about progression and moving forward.
yeah, I think so. I think it's more or less being truthful, because if you're going to be living in Canada and you're going to, you separate everything into, like I always say, man-made laws. I'm talking about the laws and money. If you value those things, then of course you're going to be a liberal or a conservative, because it's all about taxation and feelings over facts within that, that monetized game. But I'm talking about natural law. I'm talking about the spirituality. I'm talking about real human beings and animals alike. We have to look at these things first and foremost before we start playing this game, because right now we're playing the money game, and yet nobody understands inflation. Nobody understands the credit system. They don't even know that we were at gold standard at one time. So why are they even trying to pretend like it doesn't exist when inflation is probably the biggest reason our families are separated and our children are in school? When a two-parent it used to be a one-parent system or two-parent system became separated by their job because they both have to work. Who's raising their kids now? See, there's a part of morality that we're forgetting in this monetized system. And that's why they're all liberalized or something, or somebody comes around because they didn't have no fucking daddies to the point where they decided, hey, you know what? I have feelings and they should matter. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm just saying I'm more of a progressive. Forget about this bullshit that we're looking at, and let's look at the real big picture that we have to move to the other. I'm there for the left wing. I'm there for the right wing. I'm even there for the freaking midgets. At the end of the day, we just have to work together. So hopefully that makes sense.
I understand what you're saying for sure. Um, we're in some trying times in society. Um, there's a couple more topics here for sure. I saw somebody in the comments discuss this earlier, and if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. I know absolutely nothing about it, but they had said that they had a visceral reaction to the post you had made about MMIW. I'll say like that. Um, would you like to discuss that topic at all and what your post was about? Because it seemed as though you
Yeah,
had
it's
some
it's it's
opinions.
easy for me to talk about. At the end of the day, these guys need healing. Like I already fucking told them that a long time ago. But I said, the day everything started for me with MMIW, why that war happened with me and MMIW in 216 and everything. The beginning of it was me talking about sexual abuse. And when MMIW started, before this bullshit with MMIW, women's two spirits and men and freaking midgets and res dogs, where it really started was it was about the prostitutes that they found in snowbanks. And we're trying to bring awareness for these things prior to. People at that time thought there was a serial killer. And we talked about these things, and we wanted justice. We wanted investigations from the police. Why these things and why they put it in the back shelf? That was understanding with law. And that's what we were talking about. But when they came down to asking me in 2013 in Edmonton here, when we had that protest there, they asked me, and I had to talk to him, and they asked me, what do you think, Adrian? And I said exactly what I said. I said, I understand there's a lot of people that died, but we're not talking about the underlying issues of addiction. We're not talking about the underlying issues of abuse. We're not talking about the underlying issues of gang systems, where these addictions came from, and sexual abuse. So when I talked about it, they didn't like me in 2013. So I quit. I didn't want to say nothing. I lost a girlfriend at that time because she said, I didn't expect you to say that. That went against our narrative that we're trying to talk about. We want to have, incite, the media for this, but you're talking about the reasons for it. We're not talking about the reasons. We want to talk about, the women that are lost and everything like that, but not the reasons for it. Because yes, we have some problems, but at the same time, too, that kind of goes against their message. You might as well be working for them. So we broke up. That was okay. Come down to 2019. Like I said, I was in BC doing photography. And then I saw this post where these women were making pictures about MMIW. Beautiful, beautiful women in sexy outfits, putting these nice, good handprints on their faces for beautiful photography and how sexy they posed for MMIW. What I said is, wow, they're really taking this to a different, you know, they're really sexualizing MMIW to the point where I want to go and jerk off. They got pissed off at that shit. And I meant you're sexualizing it. They didn't like it. They used this platform the way I looked at it at that time, and maybe I was wrong. but the way they looked at it, they were sexualizing it for their own benefit or their own gain. And these women became models, which is totally fine. I mean,
how did you find that they were sexualizing it? How did you like come to that like decision?
first it was about, nice pictures about, understanding all these things. But when you have a professional shoot showing these awesome pictures with their bodies and everything, like, it's like their their images of, I'm a photographer, okay? I went through fashion photography. I'm a clothing designer. I went to 3.5 years. I know textiles and everything. I understand the aspect of, the bodice line, the neck from the, the hip line, how to make the perfect photo. I know how to use lighting photography, especially like the rim lights and everything like that. I've been doing this for years. And I saw that photo. I knew what the hell they were looking for. They were looking for a reaction, but it wasn't poetic at all. When you're a photographer, you know what you want poetry, you want emotion, you want to draw these things. I know how to draw things from women and men and how to do because I'm a fashion photographer. So I know these things, the best look, the eyes, everything. And when I started seeing this, obviously I knew the stance as a photographer, a professional photographer. I knew that they were sexualizing it or trying to make it into something. So maybe they're using sexualization to bring awareness. But for me, it hit really home because my mom was a prostitute and she almost died twice, you know? And I would not want to see my mom like that. If I wanted to spread awareness, it would be something else. So I put that out there. And they hated me for it. And I should have shut up then. I should have been quiet. This was after my 5 day ceremony, exactly in 2019. Like I said, 2017. That elder told me I would be fighting my people one day. And then 2000, like I said, 19. This was still going on about the murder missing woman, and everybody's attacking me. They're all just making memes about me, pissed off. You're attacking me, you name it. And then I went on Sober Native Humor, and sooner or later, most people started finding me there, and they started attacking me. And that's when that post went about me being a child trafficker went there. And that was from my own people. They put that out there. It went all over the world. 2 point some million or 3 million shares all around the world. How many people saw that? How many people phoned me? The cops raided my business. All these things because these guys lied and they said, "Oh, Adrian, you deserved it for what you said. You deserve it." No, nobody deserves a fucking lie. Nobody deserves that to destroy my business because I had a right to talk and speak these things because they're my people. And that was it. I said, okay, you guys want to fight me? There's only two things I could have done. I could have changed my phone number, shut down my business, and disappear. But that will always follow me like a shadow that I was that coward and they were laughing about it. Or I'll take them all on. I'm gonna take everything on. I'm gonna expose every single fucking thing I can about my Native American people in the righteous way that I know, and I'm gonna point out every corruption, every lie, every single thing, statistic, and say that you know what, you're just as much to blame as them, because statistically speaking, 46 to 48% of all our Native American people that died during that time happened at the hands of our own people, and who's really trafficking our Native American people are the drug dealers. When they give that drug to them, methamphetamine all the way down. And that's why they're on the streets. And then you guys can't talk about that, so I did. I'm glad I did, and I'm proud of it. So they can say whatever they want, but at least I had the balls to say it because I had no other choice to, you know?
So I'm just going
Hopefully
to
it makes sense.
reiterate to everybody that's like sitting here listening, because some individuals I don't think understood your response because it was quite long-winded, but that's okay because it needed description. It needed a descriptor. It needed to be, we need to understand what the post was about, where you were coming from. But from what I heard, you had called out the MMIW movement for using the uh, you know, realization
Using it as a
of
platform so they can
there's
they use it as
one
a
thing I gotta say
platform.
though, we got to
Yep.
remember these words, right? We got to remember not to say
Yep.
certain words so that we're not
Yep.
restricted here, not only in just now but in the future on any other platform. Because I do upload all these videos to YouTube as well,
Yep.
and YouTube is way more strict than here. But MMIW, the idea that you felt as though the campaigns were isationing of these individuals, but you said that it was based on the fact that you're a photographer and you could just like you could see it. So it's the same sort of idea when somebody just says like, "Oh, it's just like when you see it, you'll know." Um,
Yeah.
People are looking
No,
for
I
this
get it.
idea, and I just want to know. I just want to hear like a better description from you because I know a lot of people weren't really
Okay.
getting it from what you were saying. Like, what did you find that was showing you that this is what was happening?
They used it as a platform for their own gain. It wasn't about the murdered missing Indigenous woman. They used it as a platform for modeling. They used it as a platform for anything else, and they never once talked about the underlying issues. That all they did was put a handprint on their face and they sold merch. And I said, that's not
I
right.
feel that. I feel that, man. But you said the visualization of the individuals that were being
Yeah.
showcased in the movement. What did you see to back up that ideology in your mind?
The photography. The photography that they posted up there, the photography about them and their outfits, the photography and how they put their contoured their body, their face, and they made it so pretty. And then they put it out there, and oh, it's so beautiful. Everybody's glorifying this beautiful shot. It's so beautiful. It's so nice. It's so powerful. And this is what we need. But they're not talking about the real crap, or they're not making it, known. And everybody didn't really give a shit about the woman that died for these women to be models or using it as a platform just to up their career or whatever it was. And I take it seriously because, like I said, I know people, the powder girls, some of them are on the streets, some died by AIDS. I know exactly a lot of things, and these people, 9 times out of 10, won't even walk these streets like I did when I almost got caught by a cops throwing fucking eggs at the Johns. Like I threw eggs at the Johns, me and Ron, my buddy Ron, we almost went to jail for it, trying to save these women, go back home and take care of your kids, but they won't because they're on addictions. But most people, the only time it only matters is when they're dead. It's not when they're alive that matters. So that's just I take it personally because I try to do a lot of things in my life, especially trying working with youth and the whole 9 bits. So I just thought that it
Yeah,
was,
I 100%.
you know,
I 100% understand where the fear, where the anger, and where the drive is coming from. One
yeah,
thing that you had said in the beginning when you first answered the question was that you recognized that you may have been wrong in the way that you approached that question specifically. And when I do push you on this, like I'm not trying to like
yeah,
have an argument here, but when I do push you on this, because you said like they were sexualized, I'm just going to use the word. Um,
yeah.
your
I could have
relation
said
is
it
because of,
nicely. I
and
could have
that's what
said
I'm
it. I
saying. It's like
I could have said it
it's
nicely
not, it's not,
at
it's not, it's not just nicely. It's like it's still in the same way. It's not only just that. You are
yeah.
saying that they're being manipulated, they're being used, and they're being exploited. Because the idea of
That's how I
sexualization,
felt.
and
That's how
especially with
I
like,
felt.
but your
I
description is more the description of exploitation, not
No, I totally
sexualization.
get it. I totally get it. I totally get it. And what I should have said to them is like, ladies, this is the great photo and everything like that, but we shouldn't use this kind of thing. I should have said these things like that. I could have, been more careful of what I said. But, I was in the mountains
That's a
and
real touchy subject, especially because these people
exactly.
aren't with us anymore, right? They're not here to defend themselves. They're not here
No, I get it.
to
I'm not talking about them. These are not people that died. These are people that were models taking pictures, is what I'm saying.
for the movement.
Yes. They are taking pictures of
Oh,
themselves. Not the ladies that died.
okay.
Do you know what I'm
Okay.
talking about?
Okay. Yes.
They
Okay.
posted
No, because
their
where I
pictures
was
on
coming from,
there.
I thought you were saying that they were like sexualizing the like romanticizing would be a better word, but
Yeah.
sexualization is like the same like but like the idea of the murder
They were
mystery that is
models.
happening within
They
Canada.
were native models on there, and they were putting their pictures up there with everything. I'm not talking about the ones that died.
At
I'm
least I'm
talking
not the
about
only one. Some people in the chat
yeah,
thought the same thing, right? So I'm glad that we
yeah,
could
yeah.
figure that out.
Well, I think you got that in there, but that's what I'm saying. These women today that use that as a platform to step up their fashion designs, because there are fashion designers using this. there was a lot of people with their shirts. There was a lot of people, pretty women, using that as a platform to step up their careers, is what I'm saying. They didn't, it was like they used dead women to get up there. And I get it, what they were doing, but it could be in a certain way, an understanding, but it's just like kind of, I took it personal that time. You shouldn't do that. You can use anything else, but don't use our dead women.
Yeah, I 100% understand where you're coming from with that, and I completely agree. And I see somebody in the chat that said that they were tasteful photos. It doesn't matter whether they were tasteful or not. It's the idea of exploiting the situation for your own personal gain. When it's somebody, not only somebody, it's a situation that is supposed to be so impactful within your own community. Like within each community, I don't know, it's kind of strange, especially if these were indigenous models. It's very,
Just
very
hold on.
hard
I'll
hitting.
be right back. I'll be right back. I'll be in 5 minutes. I'm going to use the washroom, but you can keep on talking, okay?
Yep, you're good. You're good. So I know you guys can't see me, but I'm going to be talking here to you. I do think that it has a lot. There's a lot different of way to look at things. If you're exploiting a situation within a community for your own personal gain, a lot of the reason as to why individuals like myself and other people who are thrown into the African American atmosphere have a visceral reaction when they hear the words Black Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter organization, because the organization itself has utilized this situation to prop up certain individuals and has exploited the cultural aspects of the movement. And I think that that is the basis of what he was discussing. When Adrien comes back, I'm going to be wrapping things up because it is getting close to 11 here. So if anybody has any questions that you want me to ask him about any sort of topics, I have been listening, and these are where these topics are coming from, the MMIW, a few other ones. So just let me know in the comments below if you have any topics that you'd like to hear, and I will write those down, make sure that I get them into the topic of conversation. But how have you guys all been feeling? Hopefully, you all are feeling good and having a good evening this evening. And look at that, Adrien is back. So we're going to continue the conversation.
I am back.
Make sure that you post comments down below. And somebody said the interview seems left-sided. That's always a good perspective. Somebody thinks that I'm on the left now for once. Thank you.
You
I'm
know,
in the middle
I
here. I'm not even in the middle. I'm not even on the political spectrum. I'm outside of the political spectrum. I'm just here to talk to people who care about politics. So if you think that I'm on one side or the other, that makes me feel good.
so
Means I'm doing
I
something.
didn't, I didn't want to, like I said, I never wanted to ever dream to fight my own people. But when they came after me because of what I said, it came from the page Murder Missing Woman, and then it got shared by how many pages for all their Murder Missing Indigenous Woman pages. And I was okay with that, and I let it go. I said, I'm sorry. But the time that it really mattered was after they started sharing that post about me being a child trafficker. And I told them specifically, take that off your page. I said, that's wrong. You guys didn't even ask me once. And they said, no, we're going to use you. I don't care. We don't like you. We're going to use you. And, we're going to use this because maybe it's true, maybe it's not. They didn't care if it was right or wrong. They didn't care. And they had such a powerful voice at that time that I had to be put in there so they can get more traffic. And because somebody's killing a woman now, I became the woman killer or the child killer. That they actually used that, even though it was
Careful
false.
with the language. Careful with
Yeah,
those words. They're
I'm just
going to come
saying
at
that's
us like
yeah,
none other.
but that's exactly what I'm
But
talking
yeah,
about. Is that, and that's where I decided, like, you know what, I'm gonna have to do something. It's either I do this or that, and then after that, the cops raided my business, and then got
we're
called from
coming
all
to
over the
okay.
place.
We're coming to yeah, you could say unalived, I guess they say, but we're coming to an end either way of the
Yeah,
chat of the stream. But there are a few questions that I do want to ask you. One from the stream that people are asking, and there are two things that come with this question.
yeah.
One said, "What have you personally done in your own life to um, further advance the MMIW movement?" And I could also say, like, like what kind of content Like, would you ever dedicate your content? Because we talk about things that we tend to
Yep.
believe in and want to like talk about. So like, why don't you? Because I don't see much of that kind of content on your page, and it is something that I think that a lot, like you and I both, I don't talk about it much,
Yep.
but there are lots of things that I would have to say about it. And so in the same sense, right? So like, what have you done to advance that cause, and why isn't your content more focused on that sort of thing if it is something that you are very passionate about?
Well, first and foremost, you're here, aren't you guys? And you guys talked about it, so I advanced it quite a bit. That's one first, and I'll always say that's one. So you guys can go ahead and say whatever the hell you guys want. And you guys heard me for 3 years talk about it and piss you guys off. Guess what? I did a tremendous job. So I can pat myself on the back with that. That's one. Secondly, I did almost go to jail for throwing a bunch of eggs at a John. I actually went on a newspaper because we're a vigilante running around with freaking some kind of pantyhose and chasing around people. And on top of that, what I usually do before I used to be a circle keeper, I used to talk to these Native American youth because I know I could not get to their mothers. And I talked to a lot of mothers. And actually, right now, did you guys know that I'm a sexual elder? I don't think you guys do know that. But we use a chart. We use that to find out their traumas. We use the natural aspect of things. And that's the thing. I have to use my heart no matter what in my take away all emotion the best way I can and use the truth in my heart to help to heal families. And I'm not talking about the physical aspect of it, it's about looking at uh, sexual abuse. So I've done a lot for my people. And for most people, even some of these people that are actually listening right now, they know I mean the truth because I probably helped some of you. So I've done a lot more than most people can actually throw a stick to me. So that's one thing. I made you guys all talk about it. I made you guys so mad about it to the point you just hated the messenger. You didn't even think about the message, but today you're listening. So that's what I'm saying. I did more than most people on this app will ever do, and I've spoken so many conferences. So that's the truth. I'm not trying to pat my back, but I hope you guys can do the same, you know?
And
Uh,
I see a lot of individuals in the chat saying that they don't understand, they're not listening. I think people need to like take a step back and listen to what's going on. They keep saying like, "No, what did you do? What did you do?" He's stating that what he did was get the conversation going with the visceral. That's my word of the night, visceral, that I can't even say. Get the conversation going. He sparked the conversation in individuals that may not have ever had it in the forefront of their minds, people that may not have ever heard about it before, due to the controversial nature of how he spoke about it. And regardless of if you agree or not, that's his perspective. That's what he stated. That's how he feels, and that's what he has done in his mind. That's okay. That's fine. That's like that. You asked the question, guys. You got your response. You can't be angry about the response. Sometimes that happens. You know, people don't like the response that gets given, but it is the truth. That is, everybody has a different perspective, and you contribute different things into society. Without you giving that question out, there may not have been many questions that were asked that were pushed into the forefront of the question or the answer. Crazy is the one that asked this question. No, no, Shay asked the question, but he said, "You didn't answer." He did answer. I just said, he said that his contribution to the MMIW movement was pushing the conversation to the forefront of individuals who would not necessarily discuss this sort of thing unless it was put in front of them with such a controversial statement. And I believe that that is a valid thing to state. I think that a lot of people wouldn't hear about this or wouldn't have such a reaction that they did if they were not met with opposition or an ideology that pushed against their idea, like an oppositional ideology of their own. And so I agree. I think that that was a valid response. And anybody who doesn't agree, you got to take a step back and just listen. Stop being so angry with the messenger and listen to the message because it's valid.
well, you're here,
Um,
aren't you? That's what I always say. You're here, and that's the thing. You bring you guys here, and all I'm just saying is, at the end of the day, why did it bring you here? Because of your anger, because your pain, because of a lot of things, and it is a real valid, question. And at the same time, there's real emotions behind it. Like I carried deeply with my mother who was a prostitute and almost died twice. And I've seen it firsthand. Most of you guys haven't. I've seen so many people die. I've seen so many people with AIDS on the street, and I've seen it, and I've asked them why. There's addictions and everything. So I bring these conversations out, and I'm the only one that said there's underlying issues that all you guys will never talk about, and I've talked about it time and time and time again. And Casper himself will only sit there and say it's the residential schools, it's white people. No, there's deeper issues that we're not talking about, and that's what I'm forcing out, and that's why you're here today, and I'm glad you are. That's what we need to talk about.
And I appreciate this, man. So we've had a very good conversation so far. We are going to end the stream off here, but there's going to be one last final question, and then we will be getting to the end of things. The question here for you is, where do you see yourself at this time next year?
I don't know. I really don't know. Everything changed after December. Everything totally changed. Some people say I should run for politics. Some people just say, like, I should just move down to, Japan and go do drywall up there. Some people say I should go to the Northwest Territories, but really, honestly, I'm at the first time in my life at a crossroads, because every I'm looking for a hero. I'm looking for somebody that actually could bridge the gap between the white populace and Native Americans and talk about real laws and try to go against the normal, go against the politicians, because everybody that goes against the politicians are talking their language, and their language is their language, if you know what I mean. They're playing their own game that they're all circle jerking each other. And the more I look at it, like I wish my Native American leaders like Perry Barrelgard, Over Mercury, Lawrence Joseph would actually work for our fucking people. Not only that, work for Native Americans and white people in the towns and municipalities in Canada. But the truth is, everybody is so fucking segregated that even the MMIW are segregated because they look at me as a threat. They look at allies instead of actually thinking about logic, to the point that I feel like if we're fighting about MMIW and all these little things that are really big issues in the Native American community, but that does not bring unification in Canada, then who's going to do it? And I just don't want to say me. I just don't want to say, I wish there was somebody else that could do it. I wish Native fucking dad could do it, but he's just laughing at the fucking white populace. I wish Casper would do it, but he's not bringing unification within his white populace and Native Americans. Like I wish there was real leaders out there, but the problem is, the more I look through this whole situation, where the fuck am I going to be in the next year? And I'm just looking at this aspect. There's no unification, and it's sad as a human race. You know what I mean? So I don't know where I'm going to be next year, but I'm supposed to be talking. That's the thing. So I don't know if that makes sense.
You're going to follow your own path. You're going to see where you end up.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, man. No, I really appreciate you coming out tonight, and you spoke wonders. You did a lot. You spoke your truth. You said exactly how you felt, and I think that you represented yourself very well. I'm appreciative to be able to hear how you feel about all these topics on a one-on-one discussion platform type situation where you don't have other people that you're competing against, because that's something that I've just noticed. I'm appreciative, and I'm liking this sort of setup a lot more than the free for all discussions that have been happening. A lot of people discuss, like, they talk over each other, and they don't allow full fledged thoughts to be portrayed, and you don't really get to understand where people are truly coming from. And I think that I learned a lot more about you this evening than I did know before. And I think a lot of people in the chat know a lot more about you than they did before. And I appreciate you coming out and speaking for yourself on this type of platform.
Well, thank you for having me on, and it was a pleasure. And you know what? Thank you for giving me these hard questions. But honestly, it was pretty easy because of the fact that they were truths, and that's all you have to do is follow the truth. You can't make a lie about it. because you'll get called a freaking liar, right? So thank you for your platform, and I greatly appreciate it.
Well, come back out anytime, and I'm sure that we'll have another conversation soon here.
Awesome. Okay, I'll let you go. I'm gonna go see my grandson now, and you guys have yourself a great night. And thank you guys, even if you hated me, thank you guys for coming onto this platform. I'm glad we could all come together and at least listen. Thank you very much.
Have a good night, man.
You too, buddy. Okay, bye. If I can get out of here, there you go.
See, I'm probably still frozen and nobody can see me, but hopefully you can hear me. I'm going to end the stream off here with a little monologue to you all without me being on screen. But I appreciate everybody that's come out this evening, who is here in the chat, who has been interested in the conversation, has been keeping up the conversation with each other. I really do appreciate you all. You are just as important as anybody that we bring into the box. You keep this conversation going, and it means a lot more than I can actually express. So I thank you quite a bit. Tomorrow night, we have Dua Libra coming into the conversation for some good old fashioned conspiratorial conversations, all things conspiracies, all things psychic and ghost related, all sorts of fun stuff. It's going to be very relaxed, very leaned back. There's no pressure, no nothing. It's not going to be heated whatsoever. And then on Wednesday, we have Saint 2.0, Saint 3.0, Saint, you can check him out. I will post some videos beforehand, but he is a full-blown communist, has his own beliefs, a really interesting person and a very respectful human being, so I'm really interested in the conversation with this person. And then on Friday night, we have Big Red coming in, and we will be talking all things previous, first convoy, the setup, the inquiry, everything about life in general, where he's at, what he's doing, what his plans are for the future, and just discussions about Canadian things as well. So it's going to be very fun. Next week, hopefully, we have a few more individuals that want to come out. I have things set up and lined up, but anybody that wants to come out, you can always feel free to message me over here on the Open Debate, and we can set some things up. If you are convicted in your own beliefs, I would love to hear where you're coming from and why you believe what you believe. So the next week is going to be fun, and it's going to be a good time. I hope to see everybody out, and I will be making some more promotional videos. Hopefully, I don't know, might be setting up the schedule and throwing it up for everybody to see. But either way, I appreciate everybody being here. Make sure that you screen record as much as you can and reshare any of the stuff that you find interesting on the streams, because I really do appreciate that. As much as you may think that it is going against me or anyone else, if you're going to be saying something in a live stream, you should probably want it reposted. So thank you to anybody who does that, and please do that a little bit more. I love you all. With that being said, my name's Elder. This has been the Open Debate. I'll see you again tomorrow. And if you didn't know, be your own hero, kids.